All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Home Performance Counts virtual green home tour. Today, the tour series takes us to Fort Worth, Texas on a different type of high performance journey, a green remodeling project. Greening the existing housing stock is critical to reducing the environmental footprint of residential construction. Existing stock far outnumbers new homes, and older homes are generally less efficient or green than new code-built homes, and certainly less so than new above-code homes. To put the numbers in some context, in 2015, the number of new homes built represented less than 1% of housing stock. And the number of homes built before 1970 are being retired very slowly at a rate of only about 6 out of every 1,000 per year. But also in 2015, 16% of that existing stock was remodeled to some extent. This represents business opportunities for building professionals, opportunity for homeowners to upgrade their home's performance, and both opportunity and challenges in the real estate arena stewarding these refreshed homes forward in the market. Now on to our webinar. Please note this webinar is copyrighted by the National Association of Home Builders and is intended to provide complete and accurate information on the subject matter covered at the time of the present publication. I'll give you a minute to review the copyright and disclaimer statement. And then we will move on to the learning outcomes. Today's learning outcomes are explore how the green building strategies and features of a home can impact its comfort, health, efficiency, and durability for the families that live in them. Discuss how to communicate green and high performance features to clients in a relatable way that increases customer interest and understanding, and recognize the advantages of a strong builder-realtor relationship in realizing the value of green in your next sale. Ferrier Custom Homes has been making its mark in high performance green building in both the new and remodeled market in North Texas for over 30 years. Heather Ferrier Laminack, a fourth generation builder, leads today's journey on transforming the performance and greening of a home while maintaining the character that attracted the homeowners to it in the first place. She is joined during the tour by global real estate advisor Mike Garza of Briggs, Freeman, Sotheby's International Realty to provide his perspective on the unique facets of selling green remodels. Today's tour also provides the homeowner perspective, as Heather spends a few minutes with the home's residents discussing the journey and decisions that went into this remodel. This tour series is brought to you by Home Performance Counts, which is a joint initiative of the National Association of Home Builders and the National Association of Realtors, dedicated to broadening the high-performance home conversation between building professionals, realtors, and the clients they both serve. You can learn more at www.homeperformancecounts.info. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded for on-demand viewing on nahb.org in the next few days. Finally, please drop your questions at any time during the tour or during the conversation following using the Q&A feature next to the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom webinar window. Both the questions addressed during the Q&A and any that we do not get to will be summarized in a PDF and available in the replay library with today's content. Now it's time for the tour. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Heather Laminack with Ferrier Builders, and I hope you join me today on a tour of this mid-century modern home. The owners found this mid-century modern gem and loved all the character, all the history, but wanted to find ways to make it fit their lifestyle more. And so today we're going to show you a little bit about what we did to preserve some of that original character, but also bring it up to current code, better environment for their family's lifestyle. This home was built in 1965. It had only had 2 owners previously. The good side of that is that a lot of the home's original character is preserved, which you'll see today. The bad is that there was a lot that needed to be upgraded to be brought up to code and for full functionality. So this was a balance in between modernizing the home but still honoring its history. So one of the things we did is that we made this space larger. We created more of a great room, and so we removed a wall that was dividing the kitchen from the dining and living area, which is very typical for this time. So overall, we kept the home's overall structure and footprint, but we opened it up a little bit. So we removed this wall, created a jumbo island, and then replaced all the finishes and just overall just updated it. In the kitchen, we've got Energy Star appliances and Energy Star lighting. We have locally sourced cabinetry, and you've got lots of sliders, lots of windows, great open area, and so this kitchen will be great when entertaining large crowds. Some of the characteristics that the homeowner really liked about this house, I'm going to show you today. And they're features of the home we really wanted to not only preserve but celebrate. And that includes the terrazzo floors here that will be refinished. They're all original to the home. And then we kept some of the original interior doors, which are painted black. The homeowner wanted to contrast the new versus old, and so that's a way to celebrate some of the home's history. Another really neat feature about this house are the beams. The homeowner loved them, and we worked with her to decide how to sand them and seal them down to really make them pop. And so here in the living room, which is a lot of white walls, you still have the earthiness and the warmth of the original beams being celebrated. Some of the new features we added that weren't original to the home is the fireplace with this built-in bench that provides additional seating and storage. It just contributes to the overall great room and entertaining space. One of the other things that we changed to augment the design of the home is vaulting the ceilings here in the owner's suite. We raised the ceilings both in the bedroom here and in the bathroom, and they're modestly sized, both of the rooms are, but by lifting those ceilings, it created more space and just more airiness, this openness feel as you walk into this area. So we reshuffled the layout of this owner's bathroom to create a larger bathing area. These built-ins are original to the home, and again painted a contrasting color to kind of pop and tell part of the home story. Locally made cabinets with low or no VOC finishes throughout, including all paints and stains. One thing we did as well is we augmented the daylighting. We've got the solar tubes on the bathroom ceiling as well as the closet ceiling, which provides natural daylight without having to flip on a switch, which anytime we can delay flipping that switch, it just means energy savings are realized for the homeowners. So when remodeling a mid-century modern home, or really any home, but especially a home that was built in the 60s, you know that there's going to be some concealed conditions, and this home was no exception to that. Once we removed some paneling and some sheetrock off the exterior walls, we saw pretty extensive termite damage in a lot of the living areas and the bedrooms. So we had to remove that, repair, treat it. And then even with an extensive certified home inspection list as part of the buying process that the homeowners went through, there's still a lot that's not necessarily covered. And an example of that is we knew the electrical had some kind of funny business going on just from the inspector's report, but once our electrician got here, they said, we really need to rewire the whole home. And so that was built in the budget from day one. What was not built into the budget were some of the plumbing infrastructure that once we started the process, we realized there were some faulty waste lines, and there's no time like the present when you're repairing that type of thing. You don't want to put on all these new floors and then have to jackhammer it out later down the road. So that we had to go through the driveway, remove concrete, replace those. But the reality is it's better, stronger, safer infrastructure for the homeowners. You know, they can go to sleep at night knowing that the electrical and the plumbing is up to code, and you can't say that about every home on this block. So when it comes to the indoor air quality, some things that we did were we improved the exhaust fans in the bathrooms. They were undersized, and so we made them more efficient, and they're also more quiet now. And also, when it comes to introducing things into the home, we reduced or eliminated VOCs and the paints and the stains and adhesives, so limiting the amount of off-gassing. All the cabinetry is formaldehyde-free. Our vent-a-hood was sized to keep up with the size of the gas stove below it, so that we knew we would be removing the right amount but not too much. And then we spray foamed the roof deck of the attic and many of the exterior walls. Anywhere we opened up exterior walls, removed sheetrock, we spray foamed that. So most of the envelope being insulated is going to reduce air transmission and ultimately make a more comfortable home. When it came to replacing plumbing fixtures, we looked at WaterSense certified fixtures throughout the home, and that's the biggest thing we did here. We've got low flow toilets, so it's just using less water than the previous iteration of this home with the same amount of fixtures in place. It's characteristic with a lot of homes this age, there are a significant amount of windows and doors. And so we kept all of those openings. We just upgraded the glass and the units that went into them. So you got Energy Star doors and windows. You've got Energy Star appliances that are using less energy. The furnaces were relatively new, and so we kept them. We didn't upgrade the AC, but we did add supply and return to various parts of the homes that were undersized, which made it more comfortable, so you don't have as many hot and cold spots throughout the home. Those furnaces weren't properly exhausted before, and so now they're in up to code, so they're properly exhausted. So from an indoor air quality standpoint, all that's going outside and not back into the living environment. The exterior of the home, a lot of the original siding was showing its age, primarily because of moisture and just our Texas sun beating on it for, 65 years. So we replaced the siding with LP Smart siding, and then we painted it with a premium paint, which will greatly extend its lifespan and also reduce maintenance from a homeowner's perspective.
We've looked at probably over 100 houses or more. We've looked at new, we've looked at renovated, we've looked at houses that haven't been touched, and so it's just the view, looking out into this courtyard and then the original terrazzo floors. As soon as you see that view alone, that's what did it.
Absolutely.
Despite everything else that was in the house, because the house hasn't been renovated since 1965, and so there was a lot going on inside of this house, but this was the only one that kind of fit all the boxes that we were looking for, because even a renovated house, we were still gonna have to tear it up. And so there was an article that I read. It was about a house that was in Fort Worth that was a mid-century modern home. And this house was interesting because it had this dome structure in the backyard. And so the couple, they hired Ferrier Construction to come and renovate their house because they were able to protect the integrity of the home. They were able to keep it within the mid-century modern feel without changing the way it felt when you walked in.
And it kind of sealed the deal too, though, because when we even had our first meeting with them, he was like, well, what are y'all looking for? I think there was 2 different houses that we mentioned. Yeah, we saw this really cool renovation over in Rhine Place. He said, what was the address? And we gave it, he said, that was ours. And then there was another house, and he said, that was ours too. We were like, oh, okay, well then we don't need to talk to anybody else because we love both of those renovations.
Because we knew that he got a sense of what we were looking for and that he could help us get there. As we were pulling off the paneling, we could see that there was much more termite damage than what we knew. Because we actually wanted to keep some of the paneling in here, but we couldn't, it was destroyed.
I think one of the people that lived here at some point must have been an electrician, because all of the crazy stuff that he did, because when the electricians came in and said, I don't know who was living here, but I've never seen all these wires coming into these different junction boxes. And so they had to completely undo all of that and redo everything. And then the cast iron, all the plumbing was cast iron.
We had to redo all the plumbing, every bit of it.
So they had to redo the plumbing. And they said one of the options is to come through here and we can dig up the terrazzo and redo all the plumbing underneath. We're like, that's not gonna happen, so what else can we do? So they just capped it off on both ends and then just redid all the plumbing on both ends. So it didn't faze them. They're just like, yeah, we see this all the time, but it was just us, because this is the first major renovation we've done. We're just like, again? They're like, I know, it's fine, we'll get through it. These are the options, so they kind of held our hands as they guided us through it, which was good.
So they've done a lot to this house to make it to where you don't have to run the heat very much, or you don't have to run the air conditioner very much. I mean, you can just sit in here and not have to do a whole lot, and you're gonna get a nice temperature that's gonna be less expensive. And so he talked to us a lot about what they do and what they can do for this house to secure it. And even in the middle of summertime, whenever they're renovating it, once we got all the sliders in and all the windows changed out, you felt an immediate temperature difference. And then they spray foamed out the attic, and the difference is incredible. So it's a brand new house, all new electrical, all new plumbing. It's a brand new house. It really is.
Would you guys do it over again?
I would. Absolutely.
Seeing the result,
absolutely.
Yes. Seeing the result, yes. Yes.
I think it's kind of like whenever you go through school and you get your master's or whatever, and whenever it's all said and done, you're glad, but would you go through it again? it takes a lot out of you, but the reward is absolutely. I'm Sherry Rex.
I'm David Rex.
This is our home.
Hi, I have the pleasure of introducing a longtime friend and associate, Mike Garza. And Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, Heather, I'm with Sotheby's International Realty. Like you mentioned, we've been buddies and colleagues for a number of years, and I'm just thrilled to see what you guys have done here.
Well, thank you. You know, we're in an established neighborhood here. Tell us a little bit about how comps work when someone's looking to remodel a home in a very established neighborhood like this one.
So this is a really unique property in that every buyer that I sit down with, it seems like 99% of them say, Mike, if you could just find me a brand new type home or a home that's been remodeled, that's turnkey in an established community with mature trees, and you know, the list goes on and on. I'm like, okay, so you're looking for a unicorn. Let's see what we have in our bag of tricks. And I truly mean that this property checks a number of those boxes that a lot of buyers are looking for.
Well, you mentioned the improvements that have been made to the home. In this particular home, there's quite a bit behind the walls that if I'm a prospective buyer, I'm walking through, that I might not know exist or appreciate unless that's somehow communicated. So when it comes to things like upgraded electrical, spray foam insulation, so forth, can you walk us through, you know, how is that notated on the listing, or how would you communicate that so it doesn't get lost in the transaction?
Definitely. So these are all really good buzzwords for the consumer when they're looking at a property in an established community and they see the word remodeled, and there's a trickle effect, and they start seeing those, oh, new electrical panel, and oh, new spray foam insulation and energy efficiencies. That piques the interest of so many more buyers. And so whether we were, regardless of buyer's market or seller's market, all of those benefits and features in a property like this are going to stand out head and shoulders above the competition. So it's going to be really attractive to the buyer, but the seller is going to be grateful that they made the decisions that they made. They spent a lot of money on those improvements, so it's absolutely going to translate if and when they decide to sell their home on the open market. And for example, the kitchen that we're standing in right here, this is top 2, top 3 best places that you can invest your money in when it comes to a remodel, and they've just hit out of the park here.
Do you see prospective buyers requesting things like energy efficiency is important to me, or sustainability and so forth? Are you seeing a demand like that?
Absolutely. And so when it comes down to it, people want to make a good investment, right? So there's an emotional piece, and there's also the financial piece. But when somebody is purchasing a home like this, yes, the energy efficiency usually translates to dollars. Over the long run, they know that they're going to save money. And then you add the health component on top of that, and your company has done a phenomenal job of being very conscious of our environment, not just speaking of eco-friendly type things, but people who are dealing with allergies or indoor type issues. So that is going to be a tremendous value, and again, translate very well when and if they decide to sell their home.
Yeah, those operating costs or reduction in translates to future buyers as well, not just the current owners, right?
Yeah, and you can even, you make the valid argument that insurance providers, when you are shopping for the best insurance rates for your home, they like to see these things as well, because that's also going to reduce your premiums and your insurance costs.
Yeah, it's the total cost of home ownership, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the price tag.
That's right.
Yeah. So Mike, if you have someone that's interested in, let's say, a mid-century modern home like this one, built in '65, 2 owners, there's a lot of question marks on what improvements have or haven't been made along the way. Are there any words of advice that you have?
Sure, I'd say call Ferrier Custom Homes and have their professional team come over and look at the property, get their eyes on it, and get the ball rolling. Truthfully, I would say be bold, keep an open mind, especially when we're in a market with limited inventory. There are gems out there like this one to be purchased, to be remodeled. And yes, it's quite an undertaking, but when you partner with a true professional in your world, in that space, they can rest assured that they're going to be in good hands. The vast majority of people really do want to step into a property that is turnkey and move-in ready. For the smaller percentage of the population who is more willing to tackle some of these projects, they would be elated to walk into something like, it's almost like a time capsule. It's hard to find properties with vaulted ceilings and terrazzo floors and just tons of natural light pouring into the common areas. So this is a really special property.
Well, it seems like one of the characteristics people need to have, whether it's remodeling a home or buying an existing turnkey project, is flexibility in this market. Would you say that's accurate?
Flexibility has really been one of the key words that I've been using when working with buyers or sellers, but primarily buyers, and just telling them to keep an open mind and realize the potential that can, the transformation that can take place when they partner with a professional remodeling company or general contractor or even a custom home builder.
Yeah, and then once it's on our side, there's flexibility with labor and supply chain issues and so on and so forth. So
there's a variety of challenges and obstacles, and nobody wants to hear that, but that's the nature of where we're at, and hopefully we'll see some relief in that regard in the next 12 to 24 months. But I think the homeowners here have been very patient, and I think their patience has paid off.
yeah, it has. Yeah, and as a result, they have a true one-of-a-kind project that reflects not only what they believe in, but what they like to look at and live in all day. And so that's something that's hard to find turnkey somewhere. Yeah.
When it comes to determining value on all these, okay, so you have insulated windows and you have these high-end sliding glass doors and full encapsulation in the walls in the attic. A lot of it will come down to the appraiser. And if that buyer is financing the property, I find it beneficial as a listing agent to meet with the appraiser on site to give him a full list, just bullet point items on all of the improvements that have been made, from baseboards to the roof shingle that was used. And so they will give value to all those improvements. And it's just going to determine on that one particular appraiser. Now, I'll kind of say conversely, on the other hand, we've got a lot of cash buyers that are moving into this area and into Texas entirely. So if the seller were to come across a cash buyer, then you can forego that appraisal process and the financing requirements and all that, because cash is king, right?
Yeah, and you're so right about the appraiser. It really is a conversation, and I think that's something that a lot of people aren't aware of or aren't proactive with. Yeah. Making the list, making sure the appraiser has the right information, and that really can be key. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you add the component of it's in an established community. There's not a lot of homes like this within this particular neighborhood, so you might need to have the appraiser consider looking at another neighborhood just on the other side of the highway or across a busy thoroughfare to help you come up with the comp that hopefully everyone gets.
In this situation, the homeowners were not going through a lender, but at the same time, they didn't want to overinvest in the value of the home. And so, that's a balance that so many home buyers are having to face, right? Well, thanks, Mike. And having someone knowledgeable, being the real estate agent, makes a huge difference in the whole process of selling and getting the right information in the right hands. And so we're lucky to have you on our team.
Oh, thanks, Heather. Pleasure to be here.
All right, everyone, thank you. That takes us to the end of our tour. We're going to bring Mike and Heather on live for some Q&A. Hi, Heather. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Michelle. Hey, Heather.
And I'm Michelle Diller. I'm a program manager with NAHB's Sustainability and Green Building Program. I'll be leading the Q&A today with Mike and Heather. And if you've got any questions, please continue to put them into the Q&A section. All right, so we've had a couple things come in, and then I know we've got a couple other things to talk about. There's something I want to start in first, so an offline question we have, talking about the green aspects of the remodel in general. So bringing up an existing home, particularly one that's been built before codes were in place at all, or before many codes were in place, that's already a huge improvement in energy efficiency. But going above code, pursuing green certifications, that's something Ferrier Homes does as a regular course of business, I know. But I know remodeling projects are also a different animal, because you've got your original expectations and your goals, and then you often run into unforeseen issues, as we saw on the tour. Usually means a hit to the budget, you have to recalibrate. But this home still has a lot of above code green features. So you touched upon a couple of the unforeseen issues, particularly the termites and the plumbing. But can you share with the audience a little bit more about the journey as far as what maybe the original vision was, how those things impacted, how you had to pivot, and then what you did do above on the home that's above code that really shines as green?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Michelle. With remodels, really any remodel, but especially one with a home this age, that hasn't been maintained that great over the years, you know that there's going to be some concealed conditions and some surprises. So we always expect that. What they look like, the extent of them, that's always the unknown factor. And so we talked a little bit about it in the video. We expected to bring the electrical up to more safe and more current code, but then things like the plumbing and so forth, there's things you don't always know until you just are in the thick of it, so to speak. So part of what the homeowners had to do was to say, okay, it makes sense to invest in the infrastructure of the home now, as opposed to putting that off. That might mean we have to forego some of the design elements we really would like to do right now, but we can add down the road. And they wanted to improve the energy efficiency along the way, whether code mandated that or not. And we saw a little bit about the spray foam, replacing the windows and doors. Code doesn't require that, but we went back with a better product. And just in general, we're looking to build back better than it was before. Even if you're emulating the original design, and maybe to the average person, you can't tell if it's, part of the original home or not. We're just trying to insulate it, the envelope as much as possible, which creates a more controlled indoor air environment, and it equates to more energy savings. So anytime we can do that along the way, it makes sense. It's low hanging fruit, and it ultimately makes a more comfortable, home for our clients.
And to your comment about the windows and doors, we had a specific question about, oh, and now we've had a whole bunch come in. Okay, if people could use the Q&A, then I have less boxes to look at, please. They're in the chat at the moment.
Yeah,
and you're answering that too. Yeah, somebody asked about the model and manufacturer of the sliding doors in particular.
Right, yeah, they're Western window systems. I think they also asked if they were only online. No, our local rep carries them through Builders First Source. We met them through our local HBA. So there's definitely local reps across the states.
Okay, great, thanks. And we had a specific question on this house, which was something we were going to follow up on too. Someone asked if you sought certification for this green model and to kind of build on that past this house. I know green certification is something that Ferrier does pursue in many of their projects. So if you talk about it for this particular house and then maybe for some of your other remodels as well.
Sure. Yeah, so we build custom homes and remodels. With our custom homes, it's our standard practice to certify them to zero energy ready. And all of our homes, we do that, whether they have solar or not. Remodels, the activity, frankly, has just really seen an uptick in the last 18 months or so forth. And there's a lot of factors behind that in our market. At the top of that list is not a lot of land available. And so when we do build, a lot of times it's on infill lots and property prices are increasing. And so people are deciding to keep their kids in the same schools that they are now, take the equity out of the home and reinvest. So we're doing more remodeling than new homes these days as a result. And you're right, the certification process is different. And it's harder for us to find local verifiers to walk through that process. That's something we actually explored on the front end of this project. And you won't believe it, but the homeowners were in a hurry to get started. And so we explored a couple different options, and they were either cost prohibitive or we just didn't have a local verifier to walk us through the whole process. So what we do have currently scheduled, it hasn't been certified. The homeowners just moved in 10 days ago. So you may or may not have spotted the blue tape in the images. It was a very freshly completed project, but we're having a blower door test completed on the back end. And ultimately that's a great report card on how we did as far as the air control and leakage and so forth. And so that's a little bit of the story of why we took the path that we did with this one.
Okay, great. I've got a couple more technical questions about the house, and then Michael, we've got something for you, I promised. Patricia would like to know two things. Did you use closed or open cell foam? And she loves the bedroom sconces. She'd like to know what brand the bedroom lights are.
Well, I'm glad you like them. I don't know, but I can find out, and we can get your email, Patricia, and I'm happy to follow up with that information. I don't know off the top of my head, but we did use open cell spray foam where the application, where it was in the home, that's what made the most sense here. And some projects to do a combination, just depending on where the spray foam's going. But in this particular home, we just used open cell.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jan. Patricia, if you want to drop your email in the chat, then we'll pick that up and Heather can get back to you on that. Got something for Mike, and then I see another question in the Q&A that we will get back to. So Mike, you and Heather talked a bit about the fact that when an existing home is remodeled, it kind of changes where the house sits in the market. So if that house gets put on the market at some point going forward, can you talk about how you handle particularly getting comps that are relevant and how that might differ from the traditional process of getting comps that a lot of real estate professionals are used to?
You bet. So key takeaways from our presentation and what we're discussing right here is just some advice from a realtor is get a realtor involved and hopefully you guys have a good relationship. Go to realtor before a remodel takes place. Get with the lender as well and talk about that particular neighborhood, specific neighborhoods and well-established communities and how investing $50,000 or $500,000 is going to make sense or not make sense 3 years from now or even 10 years from now. I think that would be a good best practice, and that ultimately goes hand in hand with the appraiser situation, because most people are taking advantage of low interest rates right now, and yes, they're slowly creeping back up, but I think most people want to leverage the low interest rates because not everybody has the cash to just put down and not have a budget. Everybody has a budget. So that was one of the key takeaways I wanted to start with, was you got the client, the home builder, and then just getting your go-to realtor to give you some complimentary advice. I'm happy to do that for Ferrier Custom Homes, and then the lender as well. So when it comes to comps in a neighborhood like this one, where Most of the homes were built in the 60s, and sure, some of them have been remodeled over the last 20, 30 years, but you don't always have those comps directly in the neighborhood. So you have to look outside of the area. And fortunately, in this neighborhood, we have a couple of newer communities that have been established. So I think there was, that probably made sense for them in this situation, but the consumer loves it. And
So
I think it was
Mike, are
Patricia.
you? Oh, go ahead.
Patricia made the comment about the sconces. That's, if you guys could just see this in person, when I walked in there the first time, it was actually on the video shoot day, because they wanted to capture my honest reaction. And it is amazing what Ferrier did in this home.
So back to your comment about getting comps from outside the neighborhood. Are you finding appraisers and lenders to be more amenable to that? Is that going over okay?
So I'll start by answering with, again, one of the best practices that I've found to be very beneficial is having the home builder meet with the appraiser on site and having a list of those improvements that have been made. And that tends to be more beneficial than if the appraiser goes in there without the knowledge of all the list of improvements. So that is a best practice in my opinion.
And I know you mentioned that there's a lot of cash transactions going on in Texas right now, but have either of you had any experience, any opportunity to work with any of the green mortgages? Any of your clients been doing any of that?
No,
Not yet.
it hasn't. It's not something that I'm regularly familiar with and haven't heard much about people taking advantage of.
Okay. Heather, have you had any clients come to you or try to find financing through any green mortgages?
Yeah, we've had some explore and it's worked out for some, and for others it didn't for whatever reason. But we tried to connect them with lenders that are well versed, and so that know a lot more about it than I do, to be honest. And so, but then they help them walk through that process. But we're seeing, more people do their homework and ask us those questions, and so we just try to connect them with the best resources possible.
Okay, great. And I know you mentioned when you were talking about certification for the homes, particularly for remodels, having a little bit of an issue finding local verifiers. To that end, are you, either of you, either able to find green appraisers in your area? Has anybody used them?
I'll just speak our experience, and it might be the same or different than yours. We do have a couple that consider them green appraisers, and we have relied on them before, especially if we've had our appraisal come back. We felt like it was really undervalued. We've, kept that card and used it, and because a lot of times it's just a lack of information or a lack of willingness to get the information. And so they can be really valuable assets in the process if you find yourself in that type of situation.
I think that's a good question for a home builder that has experience, like obviously Heather, but I have not seen that myself. But I think being proactive and communicating with the mortgage company who's financing the deal and letting them know that, hey, we would prefer and we need a specialized appraiser who knows about green building and energy efficiencies and these types of certifications, and doing everything in their power to get the appropriate party out there.
And to Heather's point about using that card at times, everyone has the right to go back if they're not happy with the appraisal and request and ensure that they have an appraiser who is familiar with the types of features that are in the home. So if you're not familiar with that, that is something that you have as an option. And there is also a green addendum form that is part of the Appraisal Institute. And as a building professional and as a realtor, to make sure that that is filled out so that the features in the home are being captured for the appraiser. Like you said, obviously it's the best to have a face-to-face, Mike, like you mentioned, meeting with the appraiser, having that conversation, because a lot of the stuff is behind the walls. So it's hard to see, especially if if, for instance, these homeowners go to sell this home, say in 10 years, what's going on with the home, to have those things filled out for people that are working in this space. I think that's a good thing to point out. I want to go back to, we had a question at the beginning that this is a total gut renovation, pretty much. We didn't see the bedrooms or so, but I'm assuming that the whole house is pretty much a gut renovation. Someone would like to know, Andrew would like to know if you have any advice for people who are doing any kind of unit turns in apartments to affordably try to be environmental friendly and green if you're doing unit turns. I don't know if you've had any experience with that, Heather.
Although we don't have experience with unit turns, I can speak to just the overall approach.
Okay.
I will say this home wasn't intended to be a gut remodel. It was one of those projects that we knew it would be a little more invasive in some areas than others. But once we found termites and so on and so forth, it just got a little more invasive. So we do a lot of remodels that aren't as extensive. And, a lot of our clients come to us from totally different backgrounds with different motivating factors. But usually once educated, there is kind of some low-hanging fruit that they're interested in, especially if it doesn't equate to much difference on the bottom line. And so I think there might be some commonalities there. And similar to what I said earlier, just looking to build it back better with better products. In this particular project, the siding, for instance, is a better product, the LP Spark side, than what they used originally in the 60s. And so even though it looks the same, it performs better. And, when you're replacing, whether it's appliances in units or lighting, looking for certifications such as Energy Star or Green Guard finishes, that just designates that it's a step above and it's being measured. Water Sense certified fixtures don't all necessarily mean that it's going to cost more, but it will perform better. And then looking at things like, when it comes to the finishes, the paint, the stains, and so forth, the VOC content, how much is off-gassing in the apartments, how does that affect that, the dwellers or the neighbors and so forth. So I think there's a lot of incremental changes that can be made. Maybe it's a dual flush toilet instead of a standard toilet. But then you can also look at HVAC units and so on, and water heaters, and just depending on how much incremental cost you can bear up front and, the operating cost over time, what that looks like. There's a lot that can be done there. With, for instance, on our cabinetry, just pretty much as a standard, we do plywood interiors, and they don't have formaldehyde in them. And so that equates to very little cost difference, but the end product is a lot more durable and better for the indoor air environment. This is a couple examples.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mike, I didn't know if you had anything to add to that or no.
What I wanted to add was that I am seeing a lot more buyers coming to me with these requests about sensitivities to indoor allergies or different chemicals and products that are being used. So that's only going to increase from here on out. So I think having a great contact like Heather in this space is a great resource for the home builders out there and people remodeling, because they do this. This is why they're sought after. They're a leader in this space.
Great, thanks. So we are coming up, I want to pause for just a moment. We're coming up on our scheduled time, and I want to be respectful of people's schedules. However, we have a couple more questions, and Heather and Mike have agreed to stay for a few more minutes to address those. So if you'd like to continue to hang out, that is great. Chelsea, if you can put slide 6 up, that would be great, with just information for if people do need to drop off. If you do need to drop off, please remember that today's session is being recorded and it will be available on demand at nhb.org in a few days. In the meantime, if you've got any questions or feedback, please send it to nhblearning@nhb.org. And be sure to check out more about how to talk to your clients and how to talk between builders and realtor relationships at homeperformancecounts.info. And we'll get back to the questions then for a few minutes. Thanks, Chelsea. Okay, we've got a specific question from Andrew about how does spray foam compare with rolled insulation price-wise, at least in your area?
I'll speak to that. In our experience, bat insulation is about half the cost of spray foam. Of course, that there's an ebb and flow with the fluctuation of material costs right now. However, it does not do much for air infiltration and it's hard to, in our experience, to meet our local code, just even meeting code with it, much less surpassing it. And so we feel like spray foam gives us, the bigger bang for our buck, both in our value, but then also just comfort level, eliminating those drafts and so forth. And so, and usually when we lay it all out, our clients will opt for the spray foam as a result. We also build new homes out of structural insulated panels and other systems as well. But most often when we're using putting back insulation, like in this home, we didn't do a total encapsulation, but where we did open it up in the walls, we put back spray foam, and then we also did the roof deck.
Okay, great. And I think that segues very well into one of our offline questions about the challenges, especially in remodels, of trying to balance, you're trying to improve the energy efficiency of the house, but then you can run into moisture management. Old houses, my house is 80 years old. My house breathes all on its own without high performance, unfortunately. But as you start putting in spray foam and encapsulating part of the building envelope, what are some advice, some tips, some challenges you have seen as far as trying to tighten up that building envelope, but not run into moisture management problems?
Two things that I think of just off the top of my head. One is we have a really good relationship with our mechanical contractor, and he's very vital to the planning and just part of the overall execution of the home. And so when we're walking in the design development phase, we will tell him what we're planning to do with insulation and how many inhabitants there are, and just all the technical specs that we know up to that point. And he helps us make sure we're not missing anything from that standpoint. So, and then also the details matter, right? Flashing details, everything from kick out, like on this home, there was water intrusion, like you see a lot, just from not having the right kick out flashing at the roof and so forth, and water finding its way. And then anytime we're removing and replacing windows and doors, we're flashing them properly. We're using quick flash, penetrations in the wall. So, and of course, using some sort of membrane. So I think all of those details are just what can make or break a project, new or remodel, really, when it comes to moisture management. And then, like you said, you add the spray foam or any sort of type of, more insulation than it was before, you're just changing the dynamics of the home.
Okay. All right. Great. And a follow-up to that, and then Mike, I've got something for you. Talking about putting the spray foam in, working with your mechanical contractor is great. And that kind of segues into maybe a little bit more overall about speaking to the importance of the knowledge and experience with green building techniques of your tradespersons. I mean, the importance of, because it's not just what you've designed, it's how it gets installed, and then it's how it's operated with the homeowners, which is a whole nother webinar we could have. But as far as your tradespeople and, training your contractors, are you finding that people are getting more comfortable with these techniques, or what can you offer as advice to other builders who are doing this?
Yeah, it's not something that happens overnight. And I think everyone that's here can attest to that. And we are not the typical contractor, and we do require more from our subs than a lot do, or like the contractor next door. But that's a conversation that we've had in some cases decades, and it's been evolving, and they understand what the end goal is. And we, just like the mechanical contractor example I just gave, we have them a part of the discussion process, especially with tricky projects. And so it's a two-way street in that way. We don't want to do things that undermine it or make it more cost prohibitive for our clients to be able to have a high performance home. But it's continual, and we're learning more with all the technologies that are coming out. And so having that conversation, having open-minded contractors that are willing to learn goes a long ways. And, when people ask us for, well, I think I'll build the home myself, can you give me a list of subs? And it's like, man, that might be our most prized possession out of everything, because, it's they're not all geared that way. And so once you have them, you want to keep them. And I work with my father. Some of the tradesmen we've been working with, he's been working with for over 30 years. And clearly the way they execute the projects, in terms of high performance, that looks so different now than it did, back in the 80s, in the 90s. But we just keep evolving, keep learning, and keep challenging each other in that way.
So it continues to all be about relationships, no matter which
Right.
relationships we're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I see a quick ad from Michael in the Q&A, and then Mike, I'm going to come back to you with a final question, and then we'll wrap up. I'm not quite sure what he's asking. He says green addendum upon request. I suspect you're asking if you have to do it, if you can ask for it. It's on the Appraisal Institute website. I can say that. You can get to that addendum. You can add it to your paperwork. Often you can add it, the realtor can add it into either the notes on the MLS field or into I don't know if there's a place in the fields themselves. It depends on the MLS that you're on. But if you're trying to ask me something else or ask us something else, please go ahead and type some more. In the meantime, Mike, you alluded to that your clients are starting to ask for better air quality, healthier homes. They're starting to key into this stuff. But also the real estate market continues to be super hot all over the country. There's low inventory. So your clients, are they seeking out, and are they really holding out for green updated homes if they're looking for existing homes, not just updated kitchen counters and cabinets, but are they actually talking about some of the stuff that would go into it? And are you starting to have those conversations with them? Or are you able to kind of key them into some of that stuff?
So the short answer is no, not really. And I think because prices are at an all-time high, and that's been the case every passing year, they're more concerned about value and getting into the right neighborhood. I think we're really close to seeing that becoming more prevalent with buyers, just with that being at the forefront of their mind. But right now it's still kind of a location is the most important thing to me, and I got to be in this school district. And again, for the time being, as great as it is to be green, it's we're still like a few years off from that being top two or top three. However, I will contradict myself and say when you walk into a home and you can really methodically tell somebody about the differences of building with this versus this, and we educate them, they become more aware of like, well, actually, now that is really important to me. I want a green home. I see the benefit of. So I think it's just a matter of educating them. And this, I want to bring up something kind of off topic, but it ties in. And the power of video and social media that home builders have been using to be effective. And so this video that Heather and Ferrier Homes did for you guys is a great example of that. And it can have a very long shelf life. It's not just a 20-minute video. You can only use it one time. Cut that up into little chunks and serve it to your audience on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and on LinkedIn. And just, we all need to take part in educating people about the green differences and the benefits and those types of things.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Mike. I think that's great, and it offers me the perfect opportunity to get a quick plug in for Home Performance Counts, because that is the goal of that initiative between NAR and NAHB, is to give you some tools to open up that conversation with customers, trying to find the passion points for your customer. Do they have somebody in the family who has asthma? Do they have allergies? Do they have this? Just like when you're talking to them maybe about aging in place, some other features, it kind of helps bring that conversation. Like you said, Mike, when you start to make them aware of it, then that's something that they're going to want. People 50 years ago may not have known what a granite countertop is, and now that's what most people want. So, they didn't know what indoor plumbing was 100 years ago, and now it's the hot thing. So it's kind of bringing that conversation and raising the awareness. So I think there's lots of ways to do that, and that's some great insight. Thank you. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to give Mike and then Heather, an opportunity if you've got 30, 60 seconds of anything you want to wrap up with, and then we've got one more slide and we'll be done.
I think just driving home the power of social media and video, and again, leveraging that. Right now, I know a lot of people on this call are busier than they've ever been and your hair's on fire, but you can hire a third party. You can get with a video production company who specializes in this, and that's what Ferrier is doing right now to help you start documenting, get really good, try and insert some practices in your business to document with video and with photography. And then again, that is a great investment that will last a long time. And maybe you hire somebody to manage your social media accounts. And I get that a lot of people on this call may not even be near like, man, I got enough to worry about. I don't need to worry about that. But and I've got enough business. I don't need any more, that type of thing. But just food for thought. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
And the only other thing I'll add is that the project that we featured today was a real authentic, client or couple that did this project. This wasn't, nothing was given, to them. No, there were no promotional discounts. This is a real world example of someone that was remodeling a home that were just trying to do it better. And so the reality is that's what most of our projects are. That's probably what most of everyone that's on this call project is. People with a budget usually want more than what their budget will support. And it's up to us as the professionals to help them guide them through the cost benefit analysis and just educate them on the ways to make their home more sustainable. So hopefully today showed a little bit of glimpse into our process, and it's been a pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you, Heather. And thanks so much to our homeowners who were gracious enough somewhere, this was not in their original scope of somewhere along the process, to graciously allow us to go in and have the house filmed and talk about it and to appear on camera and give their perspective. That was fantastic. I appreciate that. So we are up at our scheduled time. So I want to thank Heather and Mike for sharing this project and their professional insight into the world of green home remodeling. It's been great, and look out for the replay link to be up probably sometime next week. You can always Google NHB Green Home Tour replay to find it. And if you've missed any of the other sessions during the past year that we've been doing these tours, please check them out on the replay library. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.